Everybody, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. Today, I'm going to share with you guys some tips regarding residency, and really, Fulma has some questions. So today's a little bit different, it's more a Q&A. So she'll ask me a question, and I'll share what I know, and we'll start there. So Fulma, would you like to introduce yourself?
So hi everyone, my name's Ifoma. I am a class of 2020 pharmacy student from University of Houston College of Pharmacy. I just matched to Baylor St. Luke's Medical Center, and so I have a lot of questions about residency, kind of scared, but thankfully Anne's here to guide me through all of this and guide us through all of this. So my first question is, so I've had like 3 rotations at Baylor St. Luke's, same place I matched, so yay. But I'm kind of anxious about how expectations are changed going from me being there as a student to now being there as a resident. And especially since I know the preceptors pretty well, I know the site pretty well. I'm just kind of curious about how that transition is going to be like.
Sure. Great question, and first, congratulations. I think that's a great question, and I think it is a good problem to have. Let me just start there, okay? So your expectation from a student where you have preceptor and under the common law, the preceptors, if anything goes wrong, the preceptor is at fault. So now as a resident, you're a pharmacist. So, and now you have a preceptor to help you, but anything you make is basically on your own license. So from that standpoint, in terms of expectations from a student where you're still learning, and as a resident, you are still learning, but they are going to expect a higher clinical skills, higher critical thinking skills, problem solving skills, and just really up your game. From what I say is that the residency is pharmacy school on steroids. So really being able to so really being able to meet the expectation and exceed expectations, and depending on the rotation and the preceptors, they know you, so their expectation will probably be the same. Like, I mean, when I say they have higher expectation in terms of your being able to work up more patients, you'll be able, as a student, in the 2 weeks, they'll give you to kind of orient yourself. Well, you've been here for 6 weeks, and now you're coming back as a resident. I expect you to go, not probably day one, because you probably forget between all the rotations, but within that first week, you should get yourself pretty comfortable with the system, with the people, and just hit the ground running as fast as you can. And then in addition, as a resident, you have a lot more projects and assignments and responsibilities, and you have a research project that you are going to be working on. So it's a lot more work and responsibilities as a resident, but I think it's exciting because you know these staff already and these individuals already, so you may not need to spend, quote, as much time getting to know or building a report because you already have a report with them. On the flip side, for those that are going to a completely new site, you don't know these individuals, really spend, even though I know rotation is gruesome and very time consuming, really spend time to get to know your co-residents. That's so important, right? And then getting to know the individuals, like not just your preceptors and residency director or coordinator, but getting to know the staff, because they are the ones who will be there to support you in any way. And you have to really know the operations very well to be a great clinician. So get to know the pharmacist, get to know in the front line, get to know your pharmacy technician, get to know the workflow. I mean, in residency, there is a practice management rotation, but that's more towards the end, or, it's usually not the first rotation. So even though you're doing a PGR1 or PGR2 clinical, spend some time, like maybe a few days, and which you will for orientation, but really like get yourself there, roll your sleeves, don't just observe. Like, one thing I would say is don't observe as just a bystander. Like, get in there, pretend that you're a pharmacy technician that day, what you can do to help, roll your sleeves, and just help as much as possible.
That's really good advice. Very nice. Okay, thank you. Um, I guess my next question kind of related to that. So again, at the site where you've had multiple rotations as a student, how do you kind of exceed expectations without being too comfortable? You kind of talked about it a little bit in the way you answered the first question, though.
Yeah, well, one more thing I'll add to that is I think don't be too comfortable with not necessarily like don't be too comfortable because you want to be comfortable, right? These are the people that spend a year, 2 years with them, so you want to feel like you're really in the family and spending that time because honestly, this is your second home, right? You're gonna spend a lot of time here, so if this is your second home, when you say the word uncomfortable, I think it's more of being able to make sure, or too comfortable, to make sure that you're not letting your guard down. And what I mean by that is maintain your professionalism, making sure that you are deliver the results they're asked for, or even earlier, let's say they say, oh, have this due in 2 weeks, you were able to turn it in a week and a half and finish it, turn it in a week and a half. So don't let your guard down in terms of just being like, oh, I'm here, I know the people, like they'll cut me some slack and I'll, slacken out, like don't do any of that. Remember, when for P4 rotations, the interview, residency is also an interview. Especially you're in a group of individuals, everyone's looking, okay? So one thing to really keep in mind is that as you go through this year, it is a long 1 year interview process. And you don't want to keep your guard down. Dress professionally, don't chew gum. I mean, just the basic, being professional, show up on time or earlier, be able to deliver. And if you cannot deliver the timeline that you guys agreed to, make sure you let them know in advance that like, hey, because of this, I can't get this done by the time that we agree. Is it possible for us to move it 2 weeks from now, or whatever you guys negotiate? But just don't wait until the deadline, the due date is like, oh, I didn't get a chance to do it. That's not professional at all, right? So really continue, even though you know the site very well, you know the people very well, still be able to keep that professionalism. Don't get your guard down. Maintain this as if it's an interview for the whole year. Like, think about it. If you were here for a whole year and there's a job opening, how can you secure that first place in line to get a job?
Yeah, that makes sense. Really good advice. Wow. Okay. Another question I had was, how do I go about asking for rotation off-site potentially? I'm not sure if I want one off-site, but I just want to know how I would do it if I wanted to.
I had a rotation offsite, and there is a special way of doing it.
Okay.
Not really. But, well, for our program, it was actually hard to get an offsite rotation. So I did a residency in the VA. It's very structured. And I think number one is that you got to plan early.
Okay.
Plan early. So even if you have an inkling of interest to stay offsite on that first day, they'll give you kind of a syllabus and a schedule of your whole year rotations. Just talk to your residency coordinator, director, saying, hey, I have this interest in solid organ transplant, which we don't, like whatever that is, I'm just giving an example. And if they don't have a strong rotation for that, or don't even have that rotation, just say, I have a very strong interest in pediatric organ transplant. Do you think there's a possibility for me to do that off-site? One thing you want to also ask is that, do we have affiliation agreement with any of the hospitals outside, either outside of state or in state, but just any affiliation agreement? Because those are the two things that you want to make sure. And I believe that it's been a while since I did my residency, so make sure that, I believe it's only limited to 2 rotation offsite. Like, you have to do X number of rotations with the program for you to be like certified and appropriate and all that. So I think it's only 2 rotations that you are allowed to go offsite. I think every program is a bit different. So first, plan early, talk to the director early, think about what rotations you're wanting to do offsite. We really only want to reserve offsite rotation for rotations that are not offered at your facilities or that are not a strong dynamic. So for example, if you are I'll give an example, in the VA where it's more geriatric and you're really interested in pediatric oncology, well, yeah, that's not gonna happen. So that's a great opportunity to say, hey, I'm really interested, like, can I go? But then I'll be questioning, like, if you're interested in pediatric, why you choose VA? That's another topic. So you know what I mean? So just make sure, don't just think, oh, I want to do internal medicine offsite.
Yeah.
We have internal medicine here. or if you want to do like you're in a cancer oncology only facilities, but you want more of a different how oncology is in a community hospital, that might be okay. So it just really depends, and I think being open to talking with your director and really showing your interest and why are you interested and plan early.
Okay. That's really good. Thank you so much. Wow, thank you so much.
My
Okay.
pleasure. Yeah, I did a finance because VA is governmental, so I want to do a private finance rotation. So I had opportunity to do so.
Wow.
So I think it's doable, but you just got to plan early. And even for when I did a residency, there was a program out in Nevada. I'm very interested. It's a VA, but it's not at all related to our program. And I would actually, reach out to the preceptor, like, hey, I'm very interested in your rotation. And after probably almost a year of bugging her, she said, okay, you can come on board. So just be persistent. That's another tip I want to share is being persistent. Really show your interest. Don't, if they say no the first time, trying to understand why, like, maybe it's not the best time, maybe. So just ask 5 why before you just give up and say, oh, it's no hope not to do it. Because it's doable. It's just how much you want
Got it, got it, got it. Good tips. Hey, last question is, so residency I've heard is pretty stressful. Not sure if it's true or not.
it.
But how do I ask for help when I'm like dying? How do I do it?
Well, first of all, you want to ask for help before you're dying.
Okay.
And not just even like the feeling of dying. So, but joke all aside, but I mean, I would say residency, it wasn't that stressful to me, but I think it's because how I come into to it, because I think I came with knowing that, oh, it's going to be super stressful. So I had that expectation already, right? So again, not putting my guard down. I think the biggest thing is being able to know yourself. So what are your strengths? What are your areas that you want to improve on? And when you're on a rotation, for example, ID is not your favorite topic and you're on a very intense ID rotation while you have other projects happening. So be able to know yourself really well and then at some point try to spread out things, right? I know as a resident, when we get into it, we have this like very strong, like, I'm going to conquer it all and I can do everything and everything I would say yes to. Great, but you want to spread out your projects as much as possible. And sometimes you have to learn to say, no, I know it's good. What, like, what? No. So, so yeah, you do have to say no, but it's not how it's not what you say, it's how you say it, right? So maybe, with all these I have, what are your priorities that you want me to do? So maybe reshuffle the priorities that your preceptor. And sometimes, like, I know as a resident, it's hard to say no to a preceptor, but just really work with them, communicate with them, like these are all my different projects. And then you know what, preceptors sometimes don't talk to each other. So you will have a preceptor for your research project, and you have a primary preceptor for your rotation, and you might have another preceptor for your longitudinal, and the three of them don't talk to each other. So in the end, they'll give you all these little things. You say yes, 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 and the next thing you know, I'm like, I have 5 projects due in a week, and then you like start, drowning. Don't. Don't wait until a point where you feel like, oh my God, I don't know what to say. So just make sure